Cassie's October sleepover at her friend's house ended with a sudden disappearance. Only after 2 years, investigators uncovered the horrifying truth that no one had noticed all this time. It was precisely the details of that very evening of the 14th of October 2019 that led them to the resolution, completely changing the perception of events. The 14th of October 2019. The clock shows 10 minutes after midnight. In the small settlement of Qualla in Jackson County, North Carolina, 9-year-old Cassie R. suddenly disappears. She was last seen in the bedroom of her friend's house, the S family, where she was supposed to peacefully spend the night. At this time, only the girl's parents and their older son, 17-year-old Max S., were in the house. None of them could say where Cassie had disappeared. Police officers arrived at the scene just 20 minutes after the parents' call. The house was quiet and, at first glance, without signs of disturbance. However, the back kitchen door was slightly ajar. This was immediately noted in the protocol. In the children's room, they found an empty and crumpled sleeping bag. This meant that Cassie had left her place suddenly, taking none of her personal belongings with her. Just 15 minutes after the search began, light autumn rain started. Later, the dog handler would explain why the service dog quickly lost the trail. In the very first hours of the investigation, police focused on 2 possible suspects. The first was Max S., the teenager who remained in the house all evening. The second was a neighbor and war veteran, 58-year-old Joe K., officially performing the functions of the settlement's security guard. He was the one patrolling the area on that very night when Cassie disappeared. Max S. confidently told investigators that during the specified time period he was in his room playing online. The young man emphasized that he used headphones all night and heard nothing suspicious. His alibi was supported by audio recordings from the gaming chat obtained by police. According to them, Max actively participated in voice communication with other players from 23:55 to 0:20. However, investigators recorded an important detail. There were no surveillance cameras in Max's room. The audio recordings confirmed only his voice, but did not prove that he was actually in his room. At 0:31, an automatic license plate recognition camera captured on the road leading from the settlement of Qualla a white service van of a heating and air conditioning systems repair company. The vehicle was moving from the direction of the settlement and was approximately 2 kilometers from the house where Cassie was spending the night. The license plate was captured only partially, which significantly complicated identifying the vehicle's owner. The camera preserved only the last 3 symbols of the number and the company logo on the side of the machine. The appearance on the ALPR camera of the unidentified service van became a key direction in the first days of investigation. Police promptly contacted local databases and began checking every vehicle registered in the county for work on eliminating the consequences of the latest hurricane. 38 service vehicles belonging to different companies came under suspicion. While investigators began interrogations and checking each driver's alibi, the central mystery of Cassie R.'s disappearance was only beginning to accumulate new facts and questions. A key moment that immediately alerted the investigation was the question of why 17-year-old Max, being literally a few steps from the back kitchen door, did not hear it slam and even the neighbor's dog barking. The dog reacted even to the slightest noise in the settlement. However, that night its barking did not attract the teenager's attention. A repeated check of the audio logs of the voice chat in Discord revealed a remarkable moment. At approximately 05, almost simultaneously with Cassie's disappearance, Max uttered a phrase that later appeared in the case materials. "The house is quiet as a morgue today." The investigation immediately recorded this strange time. Coincidence? The teenager seemed to notice nothing unusual, while Cassie at this very same time was already absent from the sleepover location. Investigators delved into the technical details of the audio recordings made during the gaming chat. The official report confirmed that Max was indeed online, but indicated an important nuance. During the session from 23:55 to 0:20, the teenager's microphone was repeatedly muted. These periods of silence were irregular. Sometimes they lasted only a few seconds, sometimes more than a minute. Police experts proposed two possible interpretations of this situation. The first version: Max could leave the room for short periods, possibly going out of his bedroom and returning back unnoticed by other chat participants. The second version: the teenager could simply turn off the microphone while remaining at the computer, or switch to another Discord channel where no recording was being made. These details did not unambiguously confirm either version, leaving the investigation facing two equally valid interpretations. 2 days after Cassie's disappearance, the investigator obtained a warrant to seize Max's shoes. Experts immediately sent the teenager's sneakers for forensic examination. The check quickly gave first results. Microparticles of soil from the neighboring yard were discovered on the soles. This looked promising, but soon criminalists established that such evidence was not unique to this case. The plots in Kuala Settlement were not separated by clear boundaries and were actually common. Therefore, the presence of soil from the neighbor's yard could not confidently indicate the teenager's involvement in the disappearance. Experts nevertheless decided to conduct an additional check of the soil sample to definitively exclude possible foreign inclusions. This check gave an unexpected discovery. Thorough examination of the soil from Max's shoes revealed the presence of technical oil, which the laboratory identified as HVA46. This substance was specific and was never used in household or garden conditions by settlement residents. Oil of type HVAC46 was used exclusively by service companies repairing heating systems and air conditioners. The official conclusion clearly indicated that such oil was usually associated with professional service equipment and special-purpose vehicles. The quantity and concentration of oil in the sample were extremely insignificant, and this was insufficient to directly connect Max with the vehicle or with the location of Cassie's possible disappearance. Nevertheless, the very fact of the presence of HVAC46 oil became fundamentally important evidence, opening a new direction in the investigation. Detectives immediately checked all companies in Jackson County using this technical substance. The investigation report particularly emphasized. Among them, one specific contractor company stood out: Blue Ridge HVAC. This company's service vehicles regularly appeared in Kuala Settlement, engaged in eliminating the consequences of the recent hurricane. At this stage, the investigation completely switched to checking drivers, employees, and the entire fleet of Blue Ridge HVAC Company. From the very beginning, the investigation suspected that the S family in whose house Cassie was spending the night might be hiding important details. The official testimony of Madison S.'s parents was dry and short. Heard nothing. Slept soundly. However, during the investigation, a strange episode surfaced that the parents preferred to keep silent about. On that very evening, the 14th of October, exactly 12 minutes before Cassie's disappearance, a call was made from the house that could completely change the investigation picture. The FBI, several months after Cassie's disappearance, studied the archive of the S family's home VoIP telephony records preserved by the provider. This data was not available to the county sheriff initially and came to light already within the federal investigation. The call log showed that at 23:58, just a few minutes before Cassie's disappearance, an outgoing call was made from the S family's home number to the service department of an HVAC company located 12 kilometers from the settlement. In the official testimony given by the parents the day after the disappearance, there was not a word about this call. The investigators immediately called Madison's mother, Susan S., for a second interrogation. When she was presented with the fact of the phone call, she looked confused and remained silent for some time, after which she stated that the call was made by accident. Supposedly the phone was at hand, and she accidentally pressed the dial button. Susan emphasized that as soon as she noticed the call, she immediately hung up without engaging in conversation. However, the provider's check recorded completely different data. The conversation duration was exactly 4 minutes 2 seconds. This was not just a random touch of the screen, but a full-fledged dialogue, the fact of which the mother of the family for some reason preferred to hide from the investigation. The investigators recorded an obvious discrepancy between the mother's words and the official call record preserved in the provider's archives. In attempts to understand the reasons for this call, investigators began checking Susan S.'s personal contacts with employees of the HVAC company. Among the versions that appeared was one that Madison's mother could be hiding some personal relationship with one of the masters working for the repair company. Checking the family's phone contacts and social networks indeed revealed regular communication between Susan and one of the company's employees. But the investigation could not confirm the personal nature of their communication. This version looked attractive and logical. However, the investigation did not receive direct evidence of a hidden romance between Madison's mother and the master. The version was temporarily set aside, but continued to appear in the closed case materials, remaining unconfirmed to the end. The FBI, having taken the original call recording from the provider, deciphered it with the help of technical experts. The audio was heavily damaged and most of the conversation remained unintelligible. However, the final phrase attracted special attention from the investigation. An unknown caller, whose voice has not yet been identified, clearly said, "Only after midnight can I come over." After these words, the connection was broken. The voice, manner of speech, and exact identity of the person behind the wheel remained unknown to the investigation so far. This phrase became an important fragment of the case, because now investigators had evidence that someone was planning to come to the S family's house precisely during the time period directly related to Cassie's disappearance. Federal agents thoroughly reconstructed the chronology of the call. It began at 11:58, ended at 12:02, just 8 minutes before Cassie's disappearance was recorded. This discovery made the verification of drivers and employees of Blue Ridge HVAC Company begun after the discovery of oil on Max's shoes. Especially important, now the investigation had to find out who exactly was driving the company's service van that evening, recorded by cameras in the immediate vicinity of the scene, and what relation this person had to the S family. When the investigation began to lose momentum and the verification of Blue Ridge HVAC Company employees dragged on, a new witness unexpectedly appeared in the case. Road worker Juan D. told police that he saw a white van that stopped at night near the forest strip at approximately 1:05. And although initially this story caused cautious interest, it soon became clear that his testimony could significantly affect the entire investigation. Initially, detectives treated Juan de S. words with restraint, because witnesses' memories, especially after time, are often distorted. However, Juan presented concrete evidence of his words to the police. A shift work log that he kept according to company instructions every night during road surface laying. In this document, Juan precisely indicated the coordinates of the road cone installation, near which at 1:05 a suspicious car stopped. The coordinates were checked. The specified cone was located just 14 meters from the van's stopping place, near the forest strip boundary. The log entry became the documentary confirmation that investigators needed to trust Juan's testimony. At the very first interrogation, Juan D. confidently stated that he noticed an old Dodge, white in color, that approached and stopped on the roadside. Detectives recorded his testimony and immediately correlated it with data from automatic road cameras ALPR installed in the Kuala settlement area. Here, the first serious discrepancy arose. The cameras that recorded the white van at 12:31 at night recognized it as a Ford Transit belonging to the HVAC company. Meanwhile, the witness continued to insist that the car he saw after 1 at night was precisely a Dodge. The investigators noted this obvious contradiction in the testimony. Juan was repeatedly asked about details, but he remained firm. "I definitely saw a Dodge. It was an old van. Definitely not a Ford." The contradiction seemed to cast doubt on the reliability of his testimony, but police were obliged to check every detail, even the most insignificant. Despite doubts about Juan's testimony, investigators worked through this version thoroughly. They spent more than a week checking owners of all old white Dodges registered in Jackson County and neighboring areas of North Carolina. Forensic experts carefully examined each car, interrogated all owners, established each driver's alibi for the night of Cassie's disappearance. According to the verification results, it was finally established that none of the Dodge owners were involved in the case. The check turned out to be clean. Not one suspicion was confirmed. The version based on Juan's testimony looked erroneous and only delayed the investigation. When investigators were already preparing to set Juan's testimony aside, an unexpected clarification appeared in the case. The FBI Technical Laboratory enlarged the image from the ALPR camera obtained at 1231 near the settlement. The frames clearly showed a Ford emblem, not Dodge. Detectives realized that the witness could simply have confused the car make. The investigator interrogating Juan separately noted in his report, "The witness probably made an error due to visibility conditions. Late night, light rain, headlights directed straight at him." The confusion with the make now looked explainable, although it introduced an unnecessary delay into the investigation. But the important thing was different. The very fact of a white van's appearance at the forest strip at the designated time received confirmation, and this detail fit into the chronology of the night of Cassie's disappearance. Now, investigators decided to finally close the Dodge direction and return to the original version of the investigation. Police attention again completely switched to the Ford Transit, the Blue Ridge HVAC company vehicle. This van still remained the only reliable lead that connected all the circumstances of the night of Cassie's disappearance. The investigation again returned to the company's service vehicle lists and began checking each employee who could have been driving the Ford Transit that night. While investigators again focused on checking the Ford Transit service vehicle, a new strangeness arose. Why did Blue Ridge HVAC company remotely disconnect technician Logan M.'s corporate tablet on the night of Cassie's disappearance? The tablet was an important company tool, constantly recording the employee's location, but precisely on this night, for an unclear reason, it turned out to be disconnected from the general monitoring system. Technical experts from the HVAC company prepared a report for federal agents, according to which Logan M.'s corporate tablet lost connection with the server on the night of Cassie's disappearance. The document indicated clear timeframes. From 11:48 until 2:20, the device did not transmit signals. This time window perfectly coincided with critical events of the investigation: the call from the S, family house, and the subsequent disappearance of Cassie. For the investigation, such a fact could not be a simple coincidence. At the very first interrogation by federal investigators, Logan M. looked calm and confident. He explained the tablet disconnection by banal forgetfulness. Supposedly, he simply left the charging device at home and the tablet discharged during work. However, FBI technical specialists immediately noticed a serious discrepancy in his testimony. They requested the Bluetooth cast log from the tablet and discovered that the device for a short time, around 12:00, still connected to the wireless network of the S family house. This contradicted Logan's words, who claimed that the tablet was completely discharged long before arriving in the settlement. The discrepancy in testimony forced the investigation to turn attention to the company technician's personality with new force. FBI investigators tried to quickly obtain accurate data about Logan's movements on the night of the incident. For this purpose, they requested GPS tracking of his personal phone. However, it turned out that Logan used an outdated model of mobile device that was not equipped with an assisted GPS AGPS module. This fact greatly complicated the work of analysts and practically led the investigation into a dead end, since Logan's phone did not leave digital traces of his exact location during that night. In the investigation materials, this episode was marked as a technical failure that temporarily slowed down the course of the investigation. However, federal analysts from the FBI's CAST division did not stop there. Despite the absence of a full GPS signal, They used micro-triangulation technology via cell towers to restore at least an approximate picture of Logan M.'s movements on the night of the incident. After a week of intensive work, the analysts presented their results. The report stated that Logan's phone registered in the coverage area of a cell tower located in the immediate vicinity of Kuala Village at exactly 0:10, at the moment when Cassie's disappearance was recorded. Thus, despite his words that the tablet was turned off and he himself was allegedly in another place, the federal examination made it clear that Logan was in the area of disappearance during the specified time period. After receiving the analysis results from CAST, the federal investigation took decisive steps. An order was immediately issued to seize the Ford Transit Service vehicle used by Logan M. The seizure operation was prepared quickly with minimal publicity to prevent the loss of possible evidence. The investigation now had to study the vehicle in all details to obtain additional confirmations or refutations of Logan's involvement in the events of that night. After federal agents seized the Ford Transit van used by Logan M., investigators faced a new mystery. The company Blue Ridge HVAC, seemingly exemplary and reliable, for some reason did not record in its official log the departure of van number BR12 on the evening of October 14th. Moreover, the company's accounting claimed one thing, while logistics claimed something completely different, and this discrepancy immediately attracted the attention of federal investigators. Checking all of the company's service logs quickly yielded first results. During the study of shift logs, investigators noticed clear signs of falsification. The log pages relating to the evening of October 14th had been carefully corrected with white correction fluid, after which new data was written over them. At first glance, the corrections were almost imperceptible, but detailed verification using a special FBI ultraviolet scanner clearly revealed the original entry. Van BR12, departure at 2010, driver LM. Now the investigation had official confirmation that Logan M. indeed went out that night in a service vehicle, which completely contradicted the company's initial official version that there were no night departures. The director of Blue Ridge HVAC company, Mark Evans, was summoned to give explanations. During the conversation, he immediately called what happened an ordinary dispatcher error. However, this version was checked and immediately collapsed. Federal investigators discovered that the very dispatcher the director spoke about had been fired just 1 week after Cassie's disappearance. The employee's dismissal documents looked suspiciously hasty and superficial. The director's version began to look like an attempt to hide the true reason for the confusion in the log. This layer of untruth gave federal investigators reason to doubt the sincerity of the company's management and set a completely new direction in the investigation. At this moment, the focus of the investigation temporarily shifted to the company director himself, Mark Evans. Federal investigators began to assume that he might have deliberately concealed facts related to Cassie's disappearance for some personal or professional motives. They checked the company's financial reports, Evans's personal correspondence, and his contacts, but were unable to find any concrete evidence against him. The suspicions were not confirmed, but the director was still kept under close attention, although this entire line of investigation did not yet bring tangible results. The situation changed when Director Evans voluntarily provided investigators with new important evidence, an official letter from the insurance company. The letter reported that on October 13th, the day before Cassie's disappearance, Blue Ridge HVAC company had officially disposed of a faulty heat exchanger that had a factory defect. The disposal should have taken place at a special warehouse, and officially the device was considered destroyed. However, when FBI agents checked the insurance company's data, they discovered a strange detail. The GPS tag of the container where the heat exchanger was supposedly placed was activated on the night of October 14th at 1:17. That is, at the very time when, according to the investigation's version, Cassie was already missing and Logan M.'s van was recorded near the forest belt. The container with the heat exchanger suddenly became an important detail in the investigation. This was the first serious indication of the possible whereabouts of the missing person. Based on the data obtained, the federal investigation immediately expanded the scope of the operation. a new warrant was issued to conduct a detailed search of all warehouse premises and containers of Blue Ridge HVAC Company. The agents were primarily interested in that very container whose GPS had recorded an unexplained movement on the night of October 14th. Now it became clear that the solution to Cassie's disappearance could be hidden precisely there, among the service warehouses and locked containers of the company that had until now looked like a model of honesty and reliability. After federal agents thoroughly examined and seized Logan's van, the investigation approached its climax thanks to a small, almost imperceptible detail. On the plastic pallet found in the cargo compartment of the vehicle, criminalists discovered a barely distinguishable brown trace of unknown origin. Initially, even experienced specialists could not definitively determine what exactly it was: technical oil or something much more significant. The sample was immediately sent to the Federal Forensic Laboratory, where after a series of precise scientific analyses, the exact nature of the substance was established. The laboratory's conclusion was dry and clear. The trace on the pallet turned out to be a small amount of blood, exactly 0.2 milliliters. Genetic examination conducted with maximum precision showed a 50% match of the found biomaterial with Cassie's mother's DNA. This scientific fact was recorded in the laboratory's official document, completely excluding any emotions and assumptions. The pallet became the first solid evidence directly pointing to Logan's possible involvement in the disappearance. After the examination results were announced, Logan's legal team immediately tried to dispute their significance. His lawyer stated that the blood sample could have gotten on the pallet accidentally, as a result of contamination from previous objects transported by the company technician. However, the prosecution immediately provided a convincing counter-argument. The case materials included documentation from the manufacturer according to which this plastic pallet was manufactured in August 2019 and was officially used by the company only once, precisely on the night of Cassie's disappearance. This circumstance refuted the defense's explanation and again confirmed the investigation's suspicions regarding Logan's involvement. The defense still did not give up and put forward a new line of argumentation, now disputing compliance with the procedure for storing and transporting the blood sample. According to Logan's lawyer's statement, the chain of custody of the sample could have been violated, since the test tube with the biomaterial sample was sent to the laboratory through FedEx Postal Service, rather than being personally handed over by a law enforcement representative. This circumstance created temporary doubt in the legitimacy of the evidence itself and delayed the trial for several days. The defense actively demanded that this blood sample be excluded from the case, insisting on possible procedural violations. However, the judge, having considered all the arguments of the parties and the testimony of criminalists, still decided to admit the DNA sample as lawful evidence in the case. This decision meant the most important turning point of the investigation. After this, the prosecutor's office immediately processed an official arrest warrant for Logan. And precisely at the moment when the situation seemed completely lost for the defense, Logan M. unexpectedly announced through his lawyer his readiness to make a deal with the prosecutor's office. This became a complete surprise for both the court and the investigation. However precisely this deal could finally put an end to the case. The investigators immediately prepared for Logan's official interrogation in the presence of lawyers and representatives of the prosecutor's office. The main task of the investigation was to clarify the exact details of the location where what had been sought for so long could be hidden. Now, after Logan declared his readiness to cooperate, his testimony was to become the final stage of the long and complicated investigation that began 2 years ago with Cassie's ordinary sleepover at her friend's house, and ending only now within the walls of the Federal District Courthouse building. At the final interrogation conducted within the walls of the federal FBI office, Logan M. described in detail the events of the evening of the 14th of October 2019. According to his confession, on the evening of that day, he received a call from Madison S.E.'s mother, who complained about a faulty air conditioner. Madison's mother asked him to come to the family house late in the evening, after midnight, as it was precisely at this time that she could discreetly let the repairman in without disturbing the other residents. Using a spare key left specifically for such situations, Logan entered the house through the kitchen's back door. Inside, he almost immediately encountered Cassie. Seeing an unfamiliar person in the dark kitchen, she screamed sharply, becoming frightened and trying to attract the attention of her parents or her friend's brother. Logan later explained that his actions were impulsive and unplanned. Fearing exposure and problems with the police, he covered her mouth with his hand and held it until Cassie stopped showing signs of life. Realizing that something irreversible had happened, he wrapped her in a sleeping bag that was in the children's room and quickly carried her outside through the same back door. Loading the remains into the service vehicle, he immediately left the territory of Kuala Settlement to avoid meeting with patrolling security officer Joe Kay, whom he knew personally. He then took the remains to the Blue Ridge HVAC Company warehouse. Taking advantage of his familiarity with its territory and the absence of night personnel, the remains were placed in a container with a defective heat exchanger that had previously been intended for disposal. After the official confession, the complete picture became clear to the investigation. The telephone call from the family mother, which occurred at 23:58, confirmed the initial reason for Logan's appearance in the house at night. The recording from the ALPR automatic license plate recognition camera at 031 confirmed the route of his service Ford Transit. The discovery of HVAC 46 oil particles on Max SS shoes turned out to be accidental transfer from the area near the entrance where Logan had parked the van. The GPS tag of the company container, which activated at 0117, became a direct indication of the location where the remains were hidden. And finally, the brown trace found on the plastic pallet definitively confirmed Logan's connection to the crime. Laboratory blood analysis showed 50% match of the biological material with Cassie's mother's DNA. The totality of all these details excluded coincidences and errors. Thus, what initially seemed like a set of unrelated facts turned into a continuous and irrefutable chain of evidence and proof that allowed federal investigators to completely solve this complex case that lasted 2 years. The final stage of the investigation took place on the territory of the contractor company's warehouse complex. Following Logan's directions, the investigators arrived at the necessary container. A federal agent cut open the massive lock with heavy bolt cutters. A loud metallic click echoed in absolute silence. The container door slowly opened, and immediately a characteristic sharp smell spread around. All those present froze for a second. Logan M., who was right there in handcuffs and surrounded by federal service employees, looked down the entire time without uttering a single word. On the 5th of May 2022, the final session of the Federal Court of Charlotte took place regarding the case of the disappearance of 9-year-old Cassie R. The judge read the final decision. Logan M. was found guilty on all counts of the indictment and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of pardon.